Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
You can recite the next two together if you like. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Jayanarutamam Devam Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jayamudhirayat Nastapraya Shubhadrishu Nityam Bhagavata Srivaya Bhagavate Tamashloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtaki. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer the respectful obeisances to the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayana Rishi, the Supreme Blessed Being, unto Mother Saraswati, the Goddess of Learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. I'd also like to offer my respectful obeisances to His Divine Grace, Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and His sincere followers, by whose grace we have access to this divine wisdom. By regular attendance on classes on the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is so troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving devotional service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as irrevocable facts. All right. So today we will be reading from the 10th canto. Chapter 70, we're starting a new chapter, and we will be reading from text 1 to text 5. So I'll go ahead and read the translations, and then we will read the Sanskrit for one and go from there. Text 1, translation. Shukadeva Goswami said, as dawn approached, the wives of Lord Madhava, each embraced around the neck by her husband, cursed the crowing roosters. The ladies were disturbed that now they would be separated from him. Text 2. The bees buzzing. This is a very nice description. The bees buzzing, caused by the fragrant breeze from the Parijata garden, roused the birds from sleep. And when the birds began to sing loudly, they woke Lord Krishna like court poets reciting his glories. Text 3. Lying in her beloved's arms, Queen Vaidarbhi did not like this most auspicious hour, for it meant she would lose his embrace. Purport. Srila Sridhar Swami explains that the reaction of Queen Vaidarbhi, Rukmini Devi, shows the attitude of
like mugging out more. Like,
yeah, it's human.
Yeah.
Text 4 through 5. Lord Madhava would rise during the Brahma Muhurta period and touch water. With a clear mind, he would then meditate upon himself, the single self-luminous, unequaled, and infallible supreme truth, known as Brahman, who by his very nature ever dispels all contamination, and who, through his personal energies, which cause the creation and destruction of this universe, manifests his own pure and blissful existence. So I'll read the Sanskrit for these verses. Brahme Muhurta Utaya Vai Upasprisya Madhava Dadyo Prasanna Karana Atmanam Tamasa Param Ekasvayam Jyotir Ananya Avyayam Swasamstaya Nitya Narasta Kalmasam Brahmakyamasyo Bhavanasa Hetuvi Swashakti Vilaksita Bhavanivritam. I'll read the translation again as well as the purport. Lord Madhava would rise during the Brahma Muhurta period and touch water. With a clear mind, he would then meditate upon himself, the single, self-luminous, unequaled, and infallible supreme truth, known as Brahman, who by his very nature ever dispels all contamination, and who through his personal energies, which cause the creation and destruction of this universe, manifests by his own pure and blissful existence. Purport. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur points out that the word bhava in this verse indicates the created beings. Thus, the compound word laksita bhava nirvitam means that the Lord Krishna gives pleasure to the created beings through his various energies. Of course, the soul is never created, but our material conditioned existence is created by the interaction of the Lord's energies. One who is favored by the Lord's internal potency can understand the nature of the absolute truth. Very important line here. One who is favored by the Lord's internal potency can understand the nature of the absolute truth. This understanding is called Krishna consciousness. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna explains that his energies are divided into inferior and superior, or material and spiritual potencies. The Brahma Samhita further explains that the material potency acts like a shadow, following the movements of the spiritual reality, which is the Lord himself, and his spiritual potency. When one is favored by Lord Krishna, he reveals himself to the surrendered soul. When one is favored by Lord Krishna, he reveals himself to the surrendered soul. And thus the same creation that formerly covered the soul becomes an impetus for spiritual enlightenment. Om Ganatimirandasya Ginanjana Shalakaya Chakshu Meritamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaurabhaktivinoda Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvaivacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna. Wonderful. So let's read that again just for fun. Lord Madhava would rise during the Brahma Muhurta period and touch water. With a clear mind, he would then meditate upon himself, the single, self-luminous, unequaled, and infallible supreme truth known as Brahman, who by his very nature ever dispels all contamination, and who through his personal energies, which cause the creation and destruction of this universe, manifests his own pure, blissful existence. So I'd like to begin this class with two questions. First question, can someone tell me the meaning of Aishvarya Gyan? Aishvarya Gyan.
Knowing the controller.
Yes, that's a nice answer. Knowing the controller. Yes. So Aishvarya, we understand to be the supreme controller, like Radha London Ishvara, supreme controller of all London. So Jagat Guru, controller of the entire universe. So Ishvara is the controller. In Gyan, we understand is knowledge. And so when we use this term, Aishvarya Gyan, it refers to knowledge about Krishna's supreme position, his opulence as God, that he is the controller of everything, that he is the source of everything, that he is Bhoktaram Yagadabasa Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, that everything is his property, and that everything is a manifestation of his energies. So that is question number one. Question number two, can someone tell me what Madhurya Gyan means? Madhurya Gyan.
Knowledge of the loving relationships with between Paramore style.
Almost. So, how it was explained to me in Sridham Mayapur at the Mayapur Institute, by His Grace Kansugaram Prabhu, there are two understandings of Krishna. First, Aishvarya means understanding his opulence as the Supreme Personality of God. Madhurya Jnana is knowledge about his sweetness.
His what?
His sweetness.
Sweetness.
So, although we do have the
Sweetness.
yeah, madhu means sweetness. So, although we have the term madhurya ras, which is referring to the conjugal relationship, in this case, the term madhurya gyan is just his sweetness in general. The sweetness that this person would become the chariot driver of his friend Arjuna. The sweetness of his character. That he's Go Brahmana, how does it go? Like, Go Brahmana Hidriyacha Jagadicha Krishna Namo Namaha. That he is the friend of the Brahmanas and the cows. That he is a son of Mother Yashoda. That he plays the flutes. That he wears the peacock feather. All of this is Madhurya Gyan. It's knowledge of his sweetness, of his personal characteristics. And so why are these two terms so important to understand? It is explained that if we do not fully understand the position of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then we can take his sweetness, we can take those sweet qualities cheaply. We can think, oh, he's just some cute boy that steals butter and does sweet pastimes. Okay. If we don't have that understanding, that gyan, that knowledge of Krishna's position, then we can take these sweet qualities of him as ordinary or mundane. Here, in this chapter, it's describing Krishna's daily activities. And now, if we don't have sufficient Aishvarya Gyan, knowledge of his position, then we'll read, he woke up in the morning with his wives, and he left to go perform duties. You might think that, oh, someone of this world does that. Some famous celebrity does that. What's the difference between Krishna and, such and such celebrity? We might not fully understand the deep meaning, the deep feeling that comes from what the Srimad Bhagavatam is revealing here. And so it's why it's so important for us to have a very firm understanding of scriptures like the Bhagavad Gita, fully understanding Krishna's position as the Supreme Lord of everything. Sarvaloka Maheshwara. That he is that person that controls everything. He is that person, Aham Sarvasha Prabhavo, from whom everything emanates. Everything material, and everything spiritual emanates from this person. He has everything. He is Atma Rama. He is self-satisfied. He doesn't need anything else to get that satisfaction. And although he's in this satisfied state, although he's Om Purnamadam Purnamidam, although everything emanates from him and he himself is the complete whole, and although everything emanates from him, he still remains the complete balance. Although he is in this exalted position, still, from that point, we go into his loving relationship, his behavior. We understand his position, like we might understand a ruler of a country. We understand his position, his power. By his instruction, by his decree, a war can go on throughout the whole world. He might be able to take over the whole planet by his power, just by his word. We understand the power of that position. And like, for example, in this 5th verse, it is saying he, through his personal energies cause the creation and destruction of this universe. One king might have the ability to take over a planet, but not even giving it much attention. Krishna can develop this entire universe. He can create it and destroy it as he likes. In the Bhagavad Gita, it said, what use is there for all of this knowledge? He goes into saying, like, I am the fire, I am the fire of digestion, I am the sun and the moon, I am the fragrance of the earth. But what need of there is all of this information, O Arjuna? Because by a single spark of my splendor, I create and maintain this entire universe. This is the unlimited Supreme Lord. He's saying, by insignificant spark, I create and maintain this entire universe. This is that position of that Supreme Person. So if we use the mundane example of a ruler of a country, they can, they have that ability to take over the planet just by their decree to their soldiers. But for the son of this ruler, for that son, the ruler is simply dad. And depending on that relationship, that ruler who can control the entire planet becomes the playtime horse. The son does like a piggyback ride on the father. There's this one example given like this. There's some great controller, but then someone, the servant comes in and sees the son is playing on the back of the father. The father is pretending to be a horse to give pleasure to his child. That's the Madhurya. Knowledge of his sweetness. Krishna controls everything without even trying. But what does he do? We are so fortunate that these scriptures have been revealed to us so that we can see what Krishna's daily activities are. So that we can see his activities in Vrindavan. We can see his activities in Dwarka. So we can see his activities in Mathura. So we can see his activities in Ayodhya. And we can start to appreciate his person. It's paramount that we have sufficient Aishvarya Gyan before we enter into these sweet activities. Why? How is that explained? Srila Prabhupada strongly states again and again, this is why there is the Bhagavad Gita. The ABCs of spiritual life. Who is the soul? Who am I? What is material nature? What is its relationship to the Supreme Being? And there are the first 9 cantos of the Srimad Bhagavatam, reiterating again and again and again what the position of the soul is and what the position of Krishna is, and what the relationship between those two are. That he is the Supreme Lord, and that we are the Jiva soul, and we are meant to engage in affectionate service. So first, that foundation is built. From that foundation, we build the ever blissful house of knowledge about his sweetness. And so I'm making a very strong point here because I would like to spend some time talking about that sweetness, but we have to have this understood correctly. Because sometimes I was hearing one class where someone did a PhD study on some of Krishna's 10th canto pastimes. And they met the devotees and they were like, how can you worship a God who's so immoral? He did a PhD study on Krishna's 10th canto activities, but the devotees told him, first you read this Bhagavad Gita. First you understand Dehinos Meditati. First you understand about the material nature and how you are not the body, and how the material energies covers the conditioned soul, and how Krishna is above those conditionings. First, this has to be understood, because if we skip to Madhurya Gyan, knowledge of his sweetness, then we'll use our conditioned, imperfect senses to try to understand that which is of another world. My limited senses can't even see what is happening in Paris right now. I can't hear what someone else is thinking. I can't feel what you're feeling. So my limited senses can't even understand everything about this world. But I'm trying to understand something about Krishna's world. For that, we need to have sufficient Aishwarya. And if we don't, then we will try to build a house on sand, and that house will be challenged by our infirm conceptions of reality. That will cause damage to the building. We will misunderstand Krishna. That house will fall, and then we have to do more work to understand Krishna. Because then you have to remove the debris of misconception and then build the proper foundation of who Krishna is, what his position is, and what my relationship to him is. And then we have to build again on top of that foundation. So that adds so much extra work. Because once we have that misconception ingrained, then we have to do the work to unlearn it and then relearn it. And so sometimes it's the most difficult to learn an instrument when you've already learned it in the incorrect way. Because then the teacher says, okay, now you have to unlearn everything that you thought you knew, build it back up from scratch, and then go from there. And so the Parampara, Srila Prabhupada, and our Guru Parampara, they have very kindly gone through painstaking endeavors to help us establish that foundation correctly from the very beginning. And this is why it's never a bad thing to spend at least 15 minutes reading one chapter of Bhagavad Gita a day. It will always refresh us. It will always give us a nice foundation. And even when we get to know and hear about these loving pastimes of Krishna, it just reiterates it. Because we think, this wonderful cowherd boy of Vrindavan, I'm reading in Bhagavad Gita, he's showing his universal form. I'm reading in Bhagavad Gita, he's the source of everything material and spiritual. I'm reading in Bhagavad Gita that he is consoling his friend, Arjuna, although he could just take care of everything himself. He's taking that time. This is the mood that makes even knowledge about his supreme position extremely sweet. And so now we have that set. If we have to know how brilliant Krishna is. He's absolutely genius. I mean, he knows that not everyone is going to have this knowledge about his supreme position. In Bhagavad Gita, he says that those without this knowledge about my position, they deride me when I come into this world in a human form. They think that I'm just an ordinary person. Knowing that, he performs activities that still set a good example for society in general. Even if we don't have any idea of his position, and we go, okay, so he's waking up early in the morning at the Brahma Muhurta period of the day, an hour before sunrise. He is touching water, he's cleaning and purifying his body, and he is performing a sadhana. He is meditating on the absolute truth. So even if we look at it from a mundane perspective, just seeing him as some great person, some historical figure, well, he's setting a great example. Although he has so much opulence, he has so much ability to enjoy, so much facility to enjoy, he has the most wonderful, sought-after queens of all of the world in waiting to serve him, yet he is detached. Yet he is waking up early in the morning, he is performing a spiritual practice. So that's even without understanding his position. Now, if we add that position and we look at it from now, Madhurya Gyan, knowledge of his sweetness, this is even more relishable because Krishna is so brilliant. He does so many things with one activity. On one hand, he's teaching people in general the good example. As he says in Bhagavad Gita, any example a great man exhibits, others will follow. So on one hand, for people in general, he's setting a good example. But now if we look from the perspective of the queens of Dwarka, what is he doing for them? He is giving them this ecstasy of separation, Vipralambha, which is extremely important in the Vaishnava philosophy. Here it says, the wise of the Lord cursed the crowing roosters.
Dirty bird.
It is saying they did not like this auspicious hour because it meant they would lose his embrace. This is so important. This is where we need to flip between mundane conception and spiritual conception, because for in this world we might see, oh, my significant other is pleasing me, so I don't want him to leave because I'll lose pleasure. But that is not the mentality of the queens of Dwarka. For the residents, for these purified, exalted souls, their mindset is, I get to serve Krishna, I get to bring him pleasure by giving him this service. And if he's gone, then I can't offer him that service. This is the ecstasy of separation for the residents of Vrindavan and Dwarka and other dhams. They are thinking, if Krishna is gone, then I can't feed him. If he's gone, then I can't bathe him, I can't dress him. I want to do this, I want to express my love for him, I want to give him pleasure. But if he's gone, what can I do? This ecstasy of wanting to give but not being able to give, it causes them to see Krishna everywhere and be fully immersed in consciousness of Krishna, intensifying their love. And Srila Prabhupada has stated, this is the perfection of samadhi. Being fully absorbed, mind, body, and consciousness, all on, how can I offer this to Krishna? I'm wanting to offer this to Krishna. Where is Krishna? Where is he? How can I express my affection for him? That absorption, which is intensified by the separation exhibited in these wonderful pastimes, is the perfection of samadhi. This perfection of samadhi is called Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness. So there's so much more to speak about, but we have only 14 minutes left. So I will pause here and see if there are any other questions or comments.
My question is exactly along the how the class is going, but thank you so much. I really appreciate the wonderful class. I just want to ask this question so I can hear you explain it. And it's how is it that what is that function? Like, how does it happen that one forgets Krishna while in the material world? Like, one is in Krishna consciousness, and it's almost like Krishna gives you these eyes to see. You're walking down the street, you can see it, and this looks like madness. But then, in another moment, you can be right involved in the madness. Like, what is that? And how does that happen? How does that much forgetfulness or that much mercy of giving us back that vision to see things as they are? It's not a real direct question, but can you speak on that a little bit?
Okay, so if I'm understanding, how does the soul get caught up in the external material?
The soul
energy?
that's already started emotional service, not completely like in ignorance. Neophyte devotee.
So although they've started their practice, how do they sometimes get swept up by the material energy?
Yes.
Stuff? I see. So Daivi Hesha, I thank you for this question, guys. This springboards into something else I wanted to speak on. Daivi Hesha Guna Mayi Mama Maya Viratya Mami Vyapapatiti Maya Metam Tiratite. Krishna says, this external energy of mine is actually one of my divine energies. And it is actually impossible to overcome alone. But For one who takes shelter in me, one who takes shelter in my internal potency, he can easily transcend the influence of the external energy. Even in this purport here, one who is favored by the Lord's internal potency can understand the nature of the absolute truth. This understanding is called Krishna consciousness. So to the degree, Krishna says, as one approaches me, I reciprocate. He's wanting us to be fully immersed in the spiritual energy and fully conscious of him. Why else is all of this here? But he says, to the degree we approach him, he reciprocates. So to the degree that we accept it, we receive it. To the degree that we take shelter in the internal potency of the Lord, to that degree we transcend the external potency of the Lord, which is extremely powerful. And we've been habituated by time immemorial to take shelter of the external energy. And so it is a long ingrained habit. And so and this is why it's so important that we have and execute these 5 most crucial angas or limbs of bhakti. Chanting the Lord's names, reading and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, worshiping the deity, associating with devotees, and living in a sacred place like Mathura Vas, or the temple, or making our homes into the temple. So it's so important that we execute these things to help us cleanse the heart, Cheto Dharpana Marjanam, so that gradually we reduce that influence of the external energy. And it's only possible by taking shelter of the internal potency. And so the external energy is very strong. Maya Devi is directly empowered by Krishna himself. And it is her duty, it's her service to bewilder living entities. But according to our desire, this is why Krishna instructs, this is why it's the crescendo of the Bhagavad Gita in the 18th chapter. Verse 66, the 18th chapter, he's saying, Sarvadharma Parityajya, that the primary dharma, the primary duty of the soul is to take shelter of me, of Krishna. Take shelter of Krishna, Supreme Personality. How do we do that? What does that shelter mean? What does that surrender mean? He describes in the verse before. Manmanabhavama bhakto ma dijima namaskuru ma me vasasatute pratijani priyosime. To always think of, become my devotee, worship me and offer your homage unto me. Thus you will be delivered without fear. I promise you this because you are very dear to me. This is Krishna's appeal to the soul. You're very dear to me. Of course I will take care of you. So what does this mean to always think about it? It means taking shelter of the internal potency. And this is why the position of even the bees in Dwarka are so exalted. If we have this understanding that even a verse like text 2 becomes magnificent, the bees buzzing caused by the fragrant breeze of the Parijata garden roused the birds from sleep. And when the birds began to sing loudly, they woke Lord Krishna like court poets reciting his glories. Even from a relative, if we always see that in a material way, it's very beautiful. Very nice way to wake up. It's gorgeous. But if we understand the nature of the spiritual world, that the spiritual world is literally composed of a different energy. The material world is composed of apara prakriti, inferior material energy, relative temporary combinations. But the spiritual world, the spiritual Dham, like Goloka, everything is composed of para prakriti, the spiritual potency. What is that? Satchit Ananda, eternality, cognizance, and bliss. That means everything in the spiritual world is cognizant. Everything is a person. Everything is intentionally offering love to Krishna and to each other. That breeze that carries the fragrance, that breeze is an action of love, carrying the fragrance of the Parijata breeze, which is out of love, offering its smell for the pleasure of the Lord. That breeze is being brought over to the bees, who are attracted and are buzzing out of glorification of the Lord, drinking that nectar. That buzzing rouses the birds. So the servant of the servant, the birds are awoken, and they are singing the glories of the Lord for the pleasure of Krishna, who is roused and brought to his morning activities. That sparks even more dynamics and more relationships. So there's always that ras, that relationship going on. And when we live in that spiritual internal potency, everything becomes this expression of giving and receiving love, which is the primary function, need, desire, and purpose of the soul. I'm going a bit over. One more thing to add to your question. This is why it is stated in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu by Srila Rupa Goswami, and it is reiterated in Srila Prabhupada's summary study of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu in his Nectar of Devotion. That's why it is emphatically stated that as sadhakas, as bhaktas, as practitioners, one must advance to the point where they, under guidance, follow in the footsteps of the residents of Vrindavan. And it is stated emphatically that what do the residents of Vrindavan do? They all take shelter of Srimati Radharani. Who is Srimati Radharani? She is the Ladini potency. She is that internal potency which is described. Krishna says, those who take shelter in my internal potency, those who take shelter of the Ladini Shakti, those who take shelter of Vrindavaneshwari, Srimati Radharani, they are able to be engaged in service to Krishna. Why? Because Srila Prabhupada states emphatically, Srimati Radharani is the sole proprietor of love. There is no bhakti without her. We are bhakti yogis. We are linking up with bhakti, which means we are trying to become the servant of the servant of the servant. Damsels of Vrindavan, Srimati Radharani. She is the proprietor of it. And so whenever we engage in our activities, we are taking shelter of our spiritual master, who's taking shelter of their spiritual master, who are in succession, linked with Vrindavaneshwari. And in that way, our activities are surcharged with her energy, with her potency, with her pleasing power. What are we trying to do? We're trying to please Krishna. We're trying to offer her potency back to Krishna. So when she's present in our activities, the soul is nourished and Krishna is pleased. This is the eternal link between Krishna and the soul. And when we take shelter of her, we transcend the material external energy and we become eternally engaged in our constitutional position in loving reciprocation, loving activity, loving service. This is Krishna consciousness.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for that question. So we have about 2-3 more minutes.
Good question. Krishna says to Arjuna, it's lust. Why? It's lust.
What are you talking about?
What? Why do we drift away? Right on Canal Street here, we have guests coming all the time. They want to know how to go to Canal Street. Why? You can buy a Rolex knockoff, a watch that looks like a Rolex watch. You can buy it for $20. And a Rolex watch costs $10,000. You can buy a Gucci bag, very expensive, $1,500 purse. I can't even imagine why somebody would pay that much for a thing to put your lipstick in. I don't even have lipstick. But, you know, you get what you pay for, it's really, it looks like the real thing, but it's not the quality. So here's Krishna lying in bed, embracing his beloved, and he's getting up to go do morning sadhana. One time I was in New Zealand, and Rita Swami was getting this piece of land, and in order to get the land, we had to get some document from somebody who already owned a house and was a resident of New Zealand. So we had one girl who's actually Rita Swami's first disciple now. She was living in a house far from Auckland, and with a bunch of posties. Posties is male girls, and they have we have male men, they have posties, post office girlies. So there were like 4 or 5 of them living in this house, right? Now, you know, we get up, we raise, we bathe, we come to the temple, we pray, we chant, we hear Bhagavatam, we see the deities. You know, it's a very sweet beginning of the day that Prabhupada gave us, right? So I've been doing this for 50 years, and I had to go out there, you know, to this house and stay overnight. It was too far away to come back that night. After our program, I went out there, and this girl signed the paper. And the next morning, all these girls got up, and they all had these big motorcycles, and they all worked at the post office, so they had to get up at the same time. So I got up, and I was chanting my rounds, and then like about an hour later, all of a sudden, rain, rain, you know, and then boom, everybody was jumping up, running all around, all these girls jumping in the toilets, flushing, and orange juice drinking, and then they all got on their motorcycles. Row! I was like, oh God, people live like that. They get up in the morning, and then they go to the toilet, and then they run out and they go to work, and that's their life, you know. It's so radical. I mean, I was like, I almost threw up. It was so shocking. They were all out of the house in like 15 minutes, you know, and there was like 5 of them or 6 of them, and they just like, you know, oh my God, you know. So we've been given this process of purifying ourselves so we don't go for the cheap knockoff. We get the real love. Because everybody who's, you know, sleeping with their girlfriend or whatever, you know, it's difficult to get up in the morning, you know. Prabhupada says, embraced by the warm arms, the warm, soft arms of your beloved, you know. But Krishna's showing us, hey, look, this low lust thing, it's a cheap imitation. There's the real thing. There's love, and this is how you do it. You get up and you practice Krishna consciousness, like you explain. I mean, your question was so poetic and soothing and, you know, beautiful. It's hard to add anything to it, but anyway, let's go for the real thing. And if there's a problem, what is the problem? Lust. It's simple. Don't go for the knockoff. I'll go to Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. So it is 8 now. And do we have time for Krishna? 1 minute. 1 minute. Okay, so we have 1 more. I saw one hand up from Krishna Kumai. I don't know if they still have a question.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for such a nice class. I think what you were speaking today and how you were presenting it is just what all of us aspiring to love Krishna need to really be in the pastimes, hearing and relishing, and it was just really so sweet. Thank you. I was thinking more like, you know, like, so I want to go to that space so I can be in that space, but I'm in this space. And and I was thinking about, I guess Radha Muralidhar here. Should I wait? Radha Muralidhar.
We can do more after darshan. Shri Radha Amrita Gauratanjan Singh Bhagavan ki jai. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Lotus feet of our spiritual master.
Thank you, Manohara Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Did we want to do the afterglow?
If you're available, then would be great.
Okay. Yes, I am here.
Okay, Krishna Kumari.
So beautiful to see Radha Muralidhar. Of course, I'm chanting Govindam, and Radha Muralidhar were my husband's first deities he worshipped, but Radha Govinda were mine. So we're like a mixed rasa couple. So yeah, just thinking about this world that we're in is actually so alive. My husband's always quoting that Prabhupada said, and I don't know if it was in a talk, but even the clouds have spirit souls. And I was at a beautiful wedding yesterday, which I made garlands, and they imbibed a couple of different traditions. There were some nice. They attract the Vaishnavas and their relations. They're quite spiritual people, but they had like Native American traditions. And when we hear the pastimes about Yamuna and the trees, the almond trees, so like I'm surrounded by these trees right now, and yeah, I'm just wondering how to personally be with Krishna 24/7 and how to really see what I'm seeing in this beautiful Rosway in which you were unveiling to us of the spiritual world and seeing it here now?
Wow, wonderful question. Thank you so much, Krishna, for my well, just to be honest, I'm not realized on that matter, but I can speak on a little bit of what I've heard from my mentors and from our parampara. Of course, just in principle, it's always important that we have association with those senior Vaishnavas who have that taste already. By their association, we will get it. And that guidance, those who are aware of where we're at in our process, and who can give us that instruction of, okay, now try this and this and this. Now I think you're ready for this and this level of absorption. Also to pair it with the instructions of Madhura Kadambini, and as well as Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu, there is that path, starting with Shraddha, and we go through Anartha-nivritta, Naranartha-nivritti. And that is a place I've heard we get hung up a lot in the removing of those anarthas. So very much seeking guidance on how to contend with removing those things, so we can at least get to the stage of nishta and transcending from there. But of course, also strong sadhana, regularly absorbing ourselves and hearing about Krishna, trying to actively apply those principles and perceiving him in the world. Also prayer. There's the 9 processes of devotional service, and prayer is another one. It's very powerful. I underutilize it myself. But to refer to one instance of Prabhupada, he also stated, someone asked, burning question, Prabhupada, how can I advance in Krishna consciousness? And Prabhupada summarized all the scriptures, all of the conclusion of philosophy into a single word. And I'm sure you may have heard this. Prabhupada said desire. So our acharyas reveal that by a strong loyam, an intense desire, agreed to attain these things, to attain Krishna and absorption in Krishna, then one is awarded it. It's only by the price of one's strong desire. And so that comes by mostly good association and by the study of the Vedas. So those are a few thoughts on that. Also, since we've been speaking about Srimati Radharani, who is the proprietor of this bhakti, and that it is now 11 days until her auspicious appearance day, it is a very wonderful opportunity for us to take shelter in her internal potency, in her representatives in the form of the spiritual master. Because any great personality, we don't approach them directly. We can't approach the president directly, for example, but we maybe can approach the servant of that servant of their servant. So similarly, this is Vrindavaneshwari. She's the queen of everything. She's the mother of devotion. And so we can approach her through her servants, like Lord Chaitanya, and Lord Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Srivas, the 6 Goswamis, Narottam Das Thakur. The lineage comes down all the way to Srila Prabhupada and our spiritual master. And so when we fall at the feet of our spiritual master, begging with a sincere desire to be connected, we can, by their grace, attain this position. And so now that Radhasmi is approaching very soon, we can pray to Srimati Radharani that she can engage us 24 hours in the service of Krishna. We can pray to our spiritual master that we can receive her grace through their guidance. So those are a few words. Thank you for your question. Thank you for your sincerity. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you,
Perfection.
Manohara.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Krishna Kumari. Okay, we can take one more reflection or question with Manohara Prabhu's permission. One more. Who wants to speak? Adipusha Prabhu, By the way, your guest is on the way. They're in cab. The guest is coming to 3rd Street now. They're in cab now. Okay, that was a paid promotion. I'm sorry. Okay. I don't see any hands. Manoharji, wonderful class. Thank you so much. Just to see you being so happy in bhakti, applying yourself to all the processes. This is so wonderful and so inspiring. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. Okay, happy Sunday, everybody. Worship your favorite deities. Go to the temple, bow down, dance, chant, feast, sweat for Krishna, and come again tomorrow. Hare Krishna. Nice seeing everybody.
Srimad
Thank you.
Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimati
Manohara Prabhu ki jai. Everybody on this call ki jai. Everybody on YouTube ki jai.
Radha.
Isaiah and Annabelle ki jai. Hare
Jai.
Krishna.